Kia ora and welcome to the Niche Cast. We're from the niche-case.com, where you can read about Aotearoa sport, because that's all we do. That's what we love to do, and that's what we're here to do. So on our website right now, we've got the Plunket Shield basic wrap-up of all the stats, the numbers that you need to know from the latest round of Plunket Shield. We've also got I was expecting it to be like a real basic, similar to my Plunket Shield yarn, but the Domestic Football Weekly Monday blog is in depth. It goes hard. It's hundies. It's paragraphs on paragraphs, as per usual from my comrade Nico the Wildcard. So make sure if you love your domestic football, you check that out, because apparently that's coming every Monday. And on the website right now, we do have the reaction, the follow-up to the Warriors' victory over the Roosters. So we've got some winning notes there. Nice menu of Aotearoa sporting yarns on our website. And of course, I expect the Flying Kiwis to come at you over the next 24 hours as well. We have lots of fantastic Aotearoa sport to discuss. Obviously going to go deep into the Warriors. Not much else on the Kiwi NRL beat was perking up my antenna. So we will do a large section, a deep dive into the Warriors. We've also got the White Ferns losing to Australia. We do have some Plunket Shield to discuss. We've got Blackcaps T20s versus Pakistan, and a fresh and funky Blackcaps ODI squad to face Pakistan. We've got some domestic footy to talk about. We've got some Wellington Phoenix Women footy to talk about. And of course, the All Whites had their victory, and they are into the Football World Cup. We got a little bit of NBL as well, but given how we started our podcast last week with a little bit of introducing Sam Ruthe to the niche case, he upped the ante. He went neck level. So can you please break down what Sam Ruthe did after listening to us talk about him in the podcast last Tuesday?
Yeah, I'm sure that was the difference. He just caught a little bit of inspiration about it. Yeah, was it Wednesday night or Thursday night? I can't remember which one it was, but they had a Wednesday night. It was Wednesday night at Mount Smart Stadium, the scene of so many great places, so many great Kiwi sporting achievements of late. Couldn't help but feel when they brought in more or less exactly 25,000 people to the All Whites game at Eden Park that maybe instead of having a half-filled Eden Park, they could have played that game at Mount Smart, had it completely full, and it would have been an even better atmosphere, and maybe that would have helped the All Whites get over their first half nerves a little bit more. But of course, Sam Ruthe was on the outer track, the number 2 pitch at running around the outside of the number 2 pitch at Mount Smart, where the athletics track is, and he was there to see if he could run a sub 4-minute mile. So normally, like at the Olympics, you get the 1,500 meters. The mile is slightly longer. That's 1,600 meters. I think it's 1.6 Ks to a mile. So it's a little bit longer, which means it's not necessarily a distance that gets raced all the time, but they keep it around because it's a nice round number. And there is this kind of legendary thing about running under 4 minutes in a mile, which is like achieved for the first time in, I don't know, like the 50s or something like that. And quite a few people have done it now, but it is a little bit of a rite of passage of like when you get to be a serious runner, you're running under 4 minutes for a mile. And Sam Ruthe at 15 years and 241 days set out to break this record. He had his mate slash mentor, Sam Tanner, who was at the Olympics last year running the 1,500 meters. He was running, he was sort of the pacemaker, but they had an 800 meter champ to run the first 2 laps. Then they dropped off. Sam Tanner kept going from that point onwards. And I don't know if it was like an arrangement of he'll just run the next lap or they see how it goes. He just ended up running the whole thing and he won the race. So he ran it quicker than anyone else. But he's run sub 4-minute miles before. And he's also several years older than Sam Ruthe, who got there with ease. Like he was official time was 3 minutes 58.35. So that's running sort of language. That's pretty comfortable. Like he's a second and a half, a little bit more than that under the mark, which is incredible. Not only is that a great achievement for him personally, but also it's a great achievement for like world running, yeah, for the sport, because he is the youngest man to ever run a sub 4 minute mile now. It used to be Jakob Ingebrigtsen, who is one of the best runners on the planet, and when he was in the junior stuff, he was just shattering youth records left, right, and center. Sam Ruthe has beaten his record. He is the only person under the age of 16 to have run a sub 4 minute mile. Shout out also to Ben Wall, who's 24 years old, but older, but also came in under the 4 minute mile for his first time under the 4 minutes, which means that Ruthe and Wall become the 49th and 50th New Zealanders to have done that. The thing that I liked about, well, the best thing about this is obviously Sam Ruthe breaking a world record. You know, it's amazing stuff. But I also like this little cyclical nature of this too, where you had Sam Tanner running the pace for him to help him get there, to guide him over the line, to be there to celebrate with him at the finish as well. He's someone who's taken a big interest in Ruth's career and who himself is probably our best runner over this distance right now in the country. Once upon a time, I think it was 2019, but I can't remember exactly when, Sam Tanner ran his first sub 4 minute mile. And you know who was running the pace for him to help him get to that mark was Nick Willis. So you've actually got this nice little like passing of the baton moment where Nick Willis did it for Sam Tanner. Now Sam Tanner's done it for the next guy coming up along. I thought that was very cool as well. I thought that was a nice bit of like Kiwi sport and camaraderie, and yeah, lovely cyclical moment to highlight what was a astounding achievement for a 15-year-old to be running that quickly.
Just because you did mention Sam Ruthe running at Mount Smart Stadium, the greatest stadium in Auckland, and you did mention the All Whites playing at Eden Park, there was a segment on the news, and I do hate watch a few things. So I know. I was hate watching the news, and there was a big old interview with this guy from Eden Park, and he was big up in himself, like we're doing 3 different sports in a weekend and all this stuff. And as an Aucklander, I appreciate that. I appreciate Eden Park hosting cricket, rugby, and football. I'd also highlight that Mount Smart at the moment is a pretty steady flow of NRL A-League every other weekend. So it's like Eden Park, they pop along once every 6 months, once every year to do a couple of different sports. Like shout out to Eden Park, but you are the second best stadium in Auckland, and that's a fact. Which also includes a little bit of seasoning, a little bit of flavor on top of this guy from Eden Park. He kept saying content. He kept saying content. He's like, we're going to have some more content coming at you, Eden Park. We're really impressed and we're really proud of the amount of content we have at Eden Park. And if there's a word that I despise more or as much as narrative, it is content.
Content's worse for mine. I can't stand content. It just makes everything sound so disposable.
We are in the content business. So if someone else wants to say we're doing content, that's fine. I don't say content. As you mentioned, like content to me has a tinge of something you use to fill the space.
Yeah.
TV channels are looking for content. They're just looking for shit to fill the space. Eden Park is looking for shit to fill the space. But this guy's a corporate geezer. He kept saying content. So I was like, oh, righto. Good for you. That's as disgusting as narrative for me. So shout out to Eden Park. Shout out to the Eden Park geezer and all his content. Like, I mean, All Whites World Cup qualifier, it's just content. It's just a bit of content. I mean, you could, as a content creator, you could get a job at Eden Park because you're creating content. The Blues, they're just content. Blackcaps, just a bit of content. Nothing major. Not some of the best sports teams in Aotearoa, just a bit of content. So shout out to Eden Park, and I will double down. Like, again, Eden Park holds a place in my heart, but Eden Park does not come close to Mount Smart Stadium. And I will double down on Mount Smart Stadium being the best stadium in Auckland. As an Aucklander, that's all I focus on. So shout out to all the other regions around Aotearoa. I do have thoughts on your stadiums. Like, I do like the Basin Reserve. I do love Porirua Park ahead of the Cake Tin. I do appreciate the Bay Oval and all that other stuff. So that's just a bit of waffle to a little bit more content for you here at the Niche Cache and the Niche Cast. We got the website. We also got the newsletter, the nichecache.substack.com, full of Aotearoa sporting information, notes, nuggets, paragraphs, feelings, emotions, insights, and opinions. It's what we do. And that is delivered every Monday and Thursday. Half of it is for free. Half of it is for the paid subscribers on Substack. And every Thursday, we have the bonus podcast, an extra podcast every week, which is part of the paid section of our Substack newsletter, but it also goes straight to Patreon. So you can support us by becoming a paid member of Substack or joining the Patreon whānau, and the full newsletter, free content, paid content. It's all copied into Patreon for the Patreon whānau as well. So if you don't want to sign up to Substack, you can sign up to Patreon. You can be on Patreon and join the Patreon whānau, because the bonus podcast goes straight there. The full newsletter is copied into Patreon. And we appreciate everyone, whether you're a free newsletter subscriber, paid newsletter subscriber, Patreon member, or you're just buying us a coffee through buymeacoffee.com. It's all appreciated. So shout out to you. I think that is the time for mindfulness, because the narratives, the content, the stadiums, it's Auckland, and we've got 3 concrete monstrosity stadiums. You could just have one. It doesn't make any sense at all. But that is to say that I'm fired up and I'm frustrated and I need some mindfulness. So what do you got?
Need some mindfulness content to help the narrative. I'm dipping into the folk tradition here, because I have a quote from Pete Seeger speaking about Woody Guthrie. So shout out to the Troubadours. But as Mr. Seeger once said, any damn fool can get complicated. It takes a genius to attain simplicity.
I concur. We'll keep it simple. That's how it is.
Yeah. And in the aim of simplicity, let's do a 2-hour podcast.
We've also had the New Zealand Breakers ownership saga.
Should we pour one out? Should we light one up?
No.
In celebration.
Well, I don't care about the old owners. What I do want to read a paragraph, but before I celebrate who are the new owners? Has that come through? Like, are we just like getting rid of the old owners, they're selling to other really crappy owners, and we just continue here? Like, do you have any information on the new ownership of the New Zealand Breakers?
I do. It's supposedly a couple of brothers from Wellington, which means it will be local ownership. Unfortunately, I don't really peruse the business section of the newspaper, so I don't know who these people are or what they do or anything like that, so I can't offer insight on that. But it will be local ownership, and that is a massive relief and a massive reason to be happy for Breakers fans and for New Zealand basketball, quite frankly, after what we've experienced for the last 7 years.
Well, here is a paragraph that you wrote in our newsletter yesterday. But this is undeniably fantastic news, bringing to an end 7 frustrating, confusing, inconsistent, and occasionally baffling years of foreign ownership. During that time, countless promises were made to fans that were not kept. The established culture and Kiwi core of the franchise was gutted and replaced. Morally questionable decisions were made. Logically questionable decisions were made. Most importantly, the basketball sucked.
Which it did. Like, it was a team that won 5 championships in the 8 years prior to the ownership change, and then only made the playoffs once. Technically, it depends if you count play-ins. They made 1 playoffs and 1 play-ins in the subsequent 7 years. A lot of losing records. That includes that 1 year where they were COVID affected that year, but also they were just terrible regardless of that, and they had their worst ever season. wasn't good. They never retained an import until Parker Jackson Cartwright at the end, and Parker Jackson Cartwright spent his second season with the Breakers looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, including trying to fight a referee at one point. It was it was not good. It was not good, and it was a constant thing of like they had that one amazing year where they made the finals, got to a decisive game 5 in the finals, and it felt like under Modi Mayor, by the way, the year that Matt Walsh moved back to America and so was probably the least involved of any of the seasons in which he owned. Not a coincidence, I would hazard a guess. Um, it seemed like they'd figured out the formula that season, right? Like they had this really good defensive team that got 3 good imports who were very team first. Wasn't about their stats. It was about how they can help the team to victory. Including if they had to play off the bench here, there, or occasionally, or whatever, like all this stuff. Great defensive core that started to build up some of those, not just getting Kiwi players in, but really especially because they didn't have that many Kiwi players in that season, and they haven't had at any point under this ownership. But they did really put an emphasis on the Kiwi values there and trying to play in a way that reflected New Zealand basketball. It felt like Modi Mayor had been around as head coach and as assistant coach before that for long enough in the country that he sort of understood this stuff. And then the next year they dismantled it and went in the opposite direction again, like refused to learn the lessons that seemed to be so obvious from that season, and then they were just bad again. And it's yeah, what a strange experience that was going through that whole ownership thing. And I'll tell you, the first thing that the new owners ought to do in order to ingratiate themselves to the fans, first thing you want to do is the first thing that the new ownership, the American owners should have done, and retire Mika Vakona's jersey. Like, link yourself with the legacy of when this team was great, when this team was winning championships, on a probably the best ever breaker, certainly the most important cultural breaker in terms of what he brought to the, setting the standards of that team when they were so good. And yeah, right or wrong, that was ignored for the past 7 years, because the first thing they did, rather than retiring Mika Vakona's jersey, is they gave it to RJ Hampton instead, which is kind of the most symbolic thing of that whole era. It was like, let's give the unknown American kid who's only using the team to further his own, not just his own career, but frankly his own brand, which is such a crazy thing to say about athletes. But some of those guys are content folks first rather than athlete folks first. And if you want a little entertaining couple minutes of rabbit hole, go dig up and see what RJ Hampton's done in his career since he played for the Breakers. It's not quite what we were told he would do when he first joined. But yeah, right some wrongs and retire Mika Vakona's jersey to start off with, and I think we're on the right foot again as a Breakers organization, and we can just ignore what happened in the last 7 years. Maybe we'll file that away as history.
Retiring Mika Vakona's jersey is definitely a good way, or just something that should be done for starters, but also like just shows some appreciation for New Zealand, and that's a good starting point.
Exactly.
Like, that's a good baseline. But the shout out to the Breakers. I mean, they're an NBL team. I wouldn't classify them as the best basketball team in New Zealand, but the Breakers did give us 2025 NBL Carlin Davison, who has been on fire in the NBL. And apparently, according to you, he's got a jump shot, which is always useful in basketball. But let me just, because my limited basketball knowledge, my limited Kiwi basketball knowledge, Carlin Davison from Taranaki, brother of Tiana Davison, who's played for the Kiwi Ferns, played NRLW, fantastic sporting family. I think it's Waitara in the Taranaki region. I need to fact check that, so I'll just do that quickly. Waitara, that is a town in the North Island, and that is a town in Taranaki, and I think that's where they're from, so shout out. But Carlin Davison, very athletic, big dunker, long athlete, rips in, high energy. But now you're telling me he's made 10 threes at 53% after 2 weeks of NBL basketball. And that's that makes him one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBL. So thank you to the Breakers, the terrible Breakers of last NBL season, for giving us this version of Carlin Davison, who, guess what? He's from New Zealand, so he's actually a Kiwi playing basketball at a high level, unlike the Breakers and what they believe. So tell us about Carlin Davison's hot start to the NBL season.
Well, a couple of years ago, I swear the guy, like, it felt like the jump shot was the one thing that was never going to get there from his game. Like, he just had a wonky shot. The action didn't look good. It seemed like most of the other things around him are spectacular. Like you say, he's super athletic. He just finds a bunch of ways to stay involved. You always know he's on the floor when he's out there. And Petteri Koponen seemed to recognize that because he did start to, even though he was a development player and the development players don't play a whole lot in general in the NBL, he was starting to get some minutes, particularly in the second half of the last NBL season. And yeah, I don't know whoever the Joker is, whatever assistant coach it was that's been working with him on his jump shot, but he's fixed it. Like he's not going to shoot 53% for the rest of the season. There's no chance of that happening. I think the fact he's 57% from the free throw line suggests it's not all solved. You know, he's not gonna be Steph Curry from this point onwards, but he's got it enough that like he can complement the rest of his game.
Sorry to interrupt, but did you say 53% from the free throw line?
53% from the 3-point line, 57% from the free throw line.
Okay, because I was gonna say if he's worse from the free point line, free throw line, sorry, if he's a worse, they always have a sponsor for the free throw line in the NBL, which is it's fun. I like it. Like you're going to the niche case to shoot your free throws and all that stuff. Like it does make it a bit of a giggle. But if you're a worse free throw shooter than a 3-point shooter, that would be a crazy basketball stat.
It would be, and that's why I think the free throw shooting is normally because that's a real stable like you're not challenged. You can't just say he got open, he hit a couple of freaky ones in the moment kind of thing, which might skew your 3-point numbers. I think if you're generally great shooters are going to nail their free throws. Like Steph Curry is the best 3-point shooter ever. He also might be the best free throw shooter ever, right? So if you've got the technique, you're going to hit those. Your 3-pointers might fluctuate a bit more just because of the nature of when you shoot them and how you shoot them and whatever. So I think if he's not shooting too well from the free throw line, that's a suggestion that he's not going to sustain what he's doing from the 3-point line. But he doesn't have to be Steph Curry because he does all these other things, right? Like Carlin Davison blocks shots, he rebounds, he can dunk, he can drive, he's getting assists as well as one of the other things. Where are we here? 7.7 rebounds per game for his first 3 games, 4.3 assists, 3.3 steals as well. So he's playing good defense. He's really challenging fellas who've got the ball, trying to, who he's guarding. He's making it a bit of a nightmare for fellas. So if you're doing everything else and you have an adequate jump shot, you can hit your open threes. You might not be a guy you're trying to shoot like whatever it was, 6.3 threes per game through his first 3 games. Well, he's not going to keep that up, I wouldn't imagine. That's just a matter of he keeps hitting them, so you keep shooting them. But if that tails off to just an adequate situation, well, he's still going to be one of the best players in the NBL. Certainly one of the best New Zealanders in the NBL because he does everything else. And for a while there, it was like his lack of a jump shot, having such a bad jump shot as well, was the one thing just felt like it was hampering him from being able to make a jump up to a higher level. Well, if he's doing this, he can play Aussie NBL. Like he can be a regular part of the Breakers rotation next season. I hope he is. I think he should be, because some way or another along the road, some assistant coaches figured it out with him, and they do say you can teach shooting. I remember when Kawhi Leonard first got drafted by the Spurs, it was a thing that they were doing that no one else was really doing. One of many things the Spurs in that era were doing that others weren't doing was like, yeah, he's got a terrible shot, and other people are turning off him because he has a terrible shot, but we'll teach him how to shoot because he does everything else, and they did. So maybe Carlin Davison is the Kawhi Leonard of New Zealand basketball. I don't know. If that's the case, I think that's a pretty good thing.
Corey Webster's also had a fantastic start to the NBL,
Yeah,
now
boy.
playing for Manawatu. So what do you reckon about Corey Webster? 3 games, 32 points, 30 points, 28 points, and at least 3 3-pointers in all 3 games. Shout out to the Indian Panthers as well. I saw an Indian in their team, so that was a big achievement for the Indian Panthers. Congratulations.
Someone turned up. That's still one fewer Indian player than they've had head coaches this season, though, because their original coach Miles Pearce quit after one game, which don't know what that was about, but it's another bad sign for how that one's progressing. Corey Webster did play against them. He had a was it the 28-point game, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, something like that was against them. So that was amazing. But also he went off against Hawke's Bay. He had a good performance against Auckland. I can't remember who the other team he played against was.
Taranaki.
But Taranaki. Oh yeah, it was. It was he and Carlin Davison played against each other in one of those games. And I think it's 2 weeks into the season. They've played 3 games, but I think he's been the best player in the competition so far, which is what Manawatu signed him to do. His dad's coaching the team, which is how they managed to coax him there. So he's obviously got a role that's nicely carved out for him. He's going to know Corey's game as well as anyone knows Corey's game. And he's just put him in a situation where he can go out there and play some outstanding basketball, which he's doing. And unlike some of these other ones, I think this is because the first few weeks of the NBL season is generally more local flavored because, for example, you got a bunch of players who are playing in the NBL finals in Australia haven't arrived yet. Sometimes the imports have to wrap up what they're doing at a different league before they arrive. So it takes a month or so before the teams get to their full capacity rosters. So like Jackson Ball, for example, I think there's 3 players from Melbourne United who are coming to play for Hawke's Bay, including their coach, who's one of the assistants at Melbourne as well. So that's obviously how the link happens. But that's a fairly big influx of players that's going to adjust the role that Jackson Ball has been playing right now. Like he's had this little window to shine. He's done brilliantly. He'll still, because of how well he's done so far, he'll still be a pretty impactful player for them, but he's maybe not going to be like the main man like he has in the first couple games. Corey Webster will be though. Like nothing's changing Corey Webster's role. He's going to be top dog at the Jets the whole way through the season, and I would have him as a pretty comfortable at this stage MVP favorite, I think.
You did mention Jackson Ball. My last little NBL question or just query to you is how Hawke's Bay, they're 3-1, so we've also got Franklin Bulls 3-1, but Hawke's Bay are the top of the table with their winning not winning percentage, maybe points scored, points differential. So let's say the Hawke's Bay Hawks, they're the best team in the NBL. Let's just keep it simple. How old's Jackson Ball?
17.
So the best team is Hawke's
older
Bay.
than Sam Ruthe, but younger than Corey Webster.
The best team, Hawke's Bay, they have a 17-year-old Jackson Ball leading their points per game, 28.5 points per game, as one of 2 players with over 20 points per game. They also have Jackson Ball third for assists, as one of 3 players with 4 assists per game, at least. And Jackson Ball is also third for rebounds, 5.3, one of 3 players averaging over 5 rebounds per game. So the best team in the New Zealand NBL so far has a 17-year-old leading their points per game and third for assists and rebounds per game. Thank you for putting me on to Jackson Ball because it's been fun to track his work over the last week or so. Do you have any updates on the exceptional start to the NBL season for Jackson Ball, the big baller? Like I'm putting him in that. I'm putting him in that ball whānau. Like he's just a big baller.
Like, I think Jackson Ball is the ball whānau, and the other balls have now been relegated to like second tier balls.
Yeah, I think the big baller brand that's like the budget version. We talked about the Panthers last week, like big baller brand. That's the home brand. Jackson Ball, the big baller from Aotearoa, he is the true blue, the real deal.
Yeah, that's the iconic one. And it, like still crazy to think at the under 17, under 18, but under 17 World Cup that he went to, he was like played the second fewest minutes, I think. And maybe there was an injury in there that I'm not remembering or something, but he wasn't even one of the main guys. And look how good he's been at this one. And a lot of those players aren't now playing in this season of NBL because they've gone to America to try and get onto college things. And a lot of them are signing some pretty decent college scholarship deals as well. Like they're getting into some good schools. The talent is insane. But yeah, with Jackson Ball, as I say, there's an influx of Australians gonna turn up and fill out that Hawke's Bay team a little bit more. But they're 3-1 without those guys. Like their head coach hasn't arrived yet, and they've got three, if not starters, then high rotation guys haven't arrived yet. And they're still winning a lot of games. One of those was against the Panthers, but they also beat Manawatu, I think. I forget who the other win was against, but they've and some of these like I say, not every team is at full capacity. I think the Auckland Tuatara are a very good example of that, a team that's missing a couple of key players and have been pretty awful for the first few weeks. That's not going to stay the same. Like they're going to get a whole lot better. Wellington's going to get a fair bit better as well when like Shealy turns up and fills things out, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if Jackson Ball's going to sustain, where are we, 36, 37 minutes spin height. That's not going to stay the same, but he's shooting 50% from three-pointers so far. And one other thing that I really like looking at his stats is he has been fouled 6.8 times per game. So not fouls that he's conceded, but times that he has been fouled by someone else. That seems, in fact, other than Harry Froling, who only played one game and got fouled 11 times, that's just big man stuff in the paint. That is, I'm pretty sure, the highest mark per game of anyone so far. Early days, but still the highest mark of anyone in terms of how often they've been fouled per game. He's played 4 games. Yeah, he has. He's played 4 games as well. So little more substantial than a couple of the other ones, just haven't played a bit more. I don't know. I like that from a 17-year-old player. He's not out there just he's shooting 50% from threes, but he's not just hanging out there on the perimeter, just tossing up open shots or anything like that. He's drawing in defenders, he's attacking defenders, and he's getting fouled and he's getting to the free throw line as a result. Like that seems like a very good formula. It seems like a youngster who is not in any way intimidated by the playing against fellas who are several years older than him. I mean, like Corey Webster is literally twice his age, you know. Jackson Ball's gone toe to toe.
The reason I chuckled when I was talking about hate watching the news, the classic 6 o'clock news where they talk about every other sport aside from the most relevant Kiwi sports that the niche case talks about, was because I have spent the last not 24 hours, maybe 12 hours watching and learning a bit about the USA soccer team, who have had some issues. I think they lost to Panama and then they lost to Canada in their own qualifying kind of situation. And I intentionally did not call them the US men's national team because they're just they're just the soccer team from the USA. Like, if you're going to have a nickname, make it like imaginative, creative, the All Blacks, the Blackhawks, the All Whites, whatever you want to, just don't. You can get away from the US men's national team, but that's America. So I do love learning about USA soccer being shit, in the same way that I love learning about England cricket being shit. So I've been learning about US men's soccer. The players don't seem to have any desire, any heart, any mana in representing USA for a soccer game. That's all the fans want. The fans don't seem to really care about like the skill or the talent of the players or where the players play around the world. They just want a team that actually tries hard. And also, I think the loss to Canada was at the big stadium in LA. Well, one of the big stadiums, SoFi, I think it was. And there wasn't anyone really there. So USA, they're hosting the Football World Cup that the All Whites New Zealand just qualified for. And USA suck after they just swapped coaches because the last coach led them to a sucky period. They hired a new coach, Pochettino, from the Premier League from Europe. He's a big dog. He's going to change everything. He's like a celebrity coach. Wowza. They still suck. And they sucked in front of no USA football fans. Like England cricket, where I compared New Zealand's cricket culture to England's cricket culture, where guys who aren't playing for the Blackcaps, guys who are on the T20 circuit, they play for a trophy. They want to play domestic cricket. They still want to represent New Zealand, even though they don't have contracts. We know contracts don't actually mean anything because you can still represent New Zealand without a Blackcaps contract. But not only that, they actually want to play for a trophy. They want to get in amongst the lads for their domestic cricket teams. That is completely different to English cricket culture. That is why England has their one-day issues. That's why New Zealand's a better cricketing nation than England. So after sitting with that comparison between England and New Zealand cricket cultures for a few months, now we have this USA versus New Zealand football culture comparison, where USA, the players don't really, the way they perform doesn't tell the fans they're desperate. They love to play for USA. They represent their nation with pride and dignity. And fans are responding. They are not showing up. And of course, you go USA football, it's basically a rich man's sport. There's a lot of structural issues in how grassroots football in USA, grassroots soccer, should I say, is set up. We've just had All Whites playing against oceanic teams, Fiji and New Caledonia, I think. I keep getting Vanuatu and New Caledonia mixed up, but we've had the All Whites playing against Fiji, New Caledonia, two heavyweights of international football in Aotearoa. Chris Wood, fantastic form in the Premier League. He's desperate to play for the All Whites back in New Zealand. He's so desperate, he risks getting injured. And he does get injured, but he doesn't care. He's happy. He loves representing New Zealand. He is setting the tone for how Kiwi footballers want to represent Aotearoa. And then you got behind you there, where you got the Wellington Phoenix Women goalkeeper Villau just flipping the bird and a classic moment of Kiwi sports. But you also got Chris Wood in the crowd with the fans.
Both bookable offences, by the way.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Fans who are desperate to see the All Whites play football. Both of those things are the opposite of what is happening in USA football ahead of a period where USA football is hosting the World Cup. So I reckon we should celebrate our footballing culture right now with the recent events and how Kiwi football just loves each other. The fans love the players love the fans. We're all just happy celebrating Kiwi football.
Yeah, now is definitely a good time to celebrate a bit of Kiwi football. It's I don't know, because the final itself is a little bit of a strange affair because the All Whites. No, yeah, I think it was more nerves than anything. Maybe a bit of pressure of expectation in the first half. It took them a while to get going against the New Caledonia team that I thought defended levels beyond what Fiji showed them in the semi-final beforehand. Fiji were kind of a shambles defensively for a team that spent like 3 weeks practicing and preparing. They did have some injuries though, so keep it fair on Fiji. But the All Whites were able to pick them apart in the wide areas, whereas New Caledonia just doubled up the wide areas every time. So it was very hard to get room for crosses, except when they won corner kicks. And when they won corner kicks, they looked like they could score off any single one of them at any point. But throughout throughout the whole frame of the qualifying thing, I think tells a fuller story about the state of the sport. At least, well, tells a state about the All Whites, but I think the All Whites situation reflects what's happening with football ferns and youth teams and whatever in Auckland FC and Wellington Phoenix and all this stuff, Kiwi pros overseas, where that idea about the best players want to be there. They didn't have to be there for all of these things. It's one thing, like everyone wants to kind of be there at the moment you qualify for the World Cup, sure, but this has been a pretty steady squad throughout each of the qualifiers, throughout most of their friendly things recently. Like, those guys just want to be there anytime the All Whites play. Chris Wood always wants to be there. Tommy Smith doesn't even play. He still wants to be there. He wants to hang around. Like, there was, great stories, I think, around, I won't say narratives, I'll say stories around the, around like Costa Barbarouses, wasn't selected for the 2010 World Cup where maybe he should have been. and it's taken him this many goes to to potentially get back. He's going to have to sustain it one more season in order to still be selected in a year's time, because it's pretty competitive for places at the moment. But him playing such a big impact and them getting there, comes off the bench in place of an injured Chris Wood, gets a goal, sets up another one. The fact that Michael Boxall scored the goal, couple of 35-year-olds. I think Boxall's actually 36 now, scoring the crucial goals. So they're two most experienced players in the squad outside of Tommy Smith, who is. I actually, at the point where Barbarousse scored after Boxall had scored, I'm like, well, you got to sub on Tommy at some point here, because he's probably going to score as well. Like, let's just go all in, or at least give like the guy who was there the last time we made it, one of the guys who was there, Chris Wood, was as well as a teenager. Like, it's a nice little symbolic cyclical Nick Willis to Sam Tanner to Sam Ruthe moment. But I guess you still kind of had that in a way where like there was a bit afterwards where they showed, I think Tommy Smith was just going around patting everyone on the back, but there was a bit where the camera caught him like with his arm around Tyler Bindon saying a few things to him. I'm like, that's like it's almost like the Cat Stevens song, it's like father and son. It's there's your Sam Tanner, Sam Ruthe moment there. But yeah, there's a great culture around the All Whites, and their best players want to be there. Their best players turn up time and time again. They do risk injuries. They risk potentially not being in the best situations with their clubs when they get back. Which, like, there are tipping points. Finn Sermon not being here for this one is an example of that. But on the whole, I think and that's, you always got to be a little bit flexible with those things. That's nothing against Finn Sermon. He wanted to be there. He actually did an interview with the Portland people where someone hinted that maybe he had skipped out on it to prioritize this. And he's like, no. The coaches were talking to each other. They decided if it's up to me, I would have played everywhere. I would never skip out on playing for my country. And I'm thinking, like, this is a dude who might have just been going to sit on the bench. Maybe not. I don't know for certain. But he was desperate to be there as well, even though he understood the bigger picture and why he wasn't, and why the national team coach and his club coach decided that maybe it was the better situation. Just focus on one thing at a time here as he tries to nail down a spot in the Portland Timbers thing. But he was still desperate. Like, this runs across the thing. It's a great thing to see, because like once upon a time, even I don't think you could ever doubt the commitment of like Ryan Nelson or Winston Reid to playing for their country, but they missed a lot of games. Winston Ruthe once upon a time, but you check out Winston Ruthe's cap things. Like, he played less than 30. Marko Stamenic has played more times for the All Whites than Winston Ruthe ever did. He just wasn't even available because he was in Europe and it was too hard to bring him back. So part of this is not just player commitment. It's also just when you have that many players available, you kind of got to be like, no one's getting a spot held for them. You kind of got to turn up, or else you don't get picked because someone else takes your spot. But yeah, I think it's a lovely moment to be able to celebrate this, and to bring it full circle with your point about America and them not having this. I'll use the England cricket comparison as well and say, imagine if Harry Brook was born in New Zealand, English parent, raised in back and forth a little bit, mostly raised in New Zealand, and then decided, having been in the England system, decided, actually, I think I prefer to play for the Blackcaps here, and then goes and commits to the Blackcaps and becomes one of their best players. Because that's what's happened with American football, American soccer, because Tyler Bindon was an under-19s international for the USA. His mother was born in USA, represented New Zealand football ferns many, many, many times, one of our best ever goalkeepers, but born in USA. He was eligible. He lived there for a fair bit as a teenager. He decided to switch back to, and it's before his big breakthroughs with Reading. Well, it's after he'd started playing for Reading, but before he'd become the guy who was on the radar of Nottingham Forest. He just said, it feels right to play for New Zealand. I feel more connected there. I'm more of a New Zealander. I'm going to go and play for them. He did. He's played against USA, funnily enough, for New Zealand as well. Like, I think at the Olympics level, I don't think he played when we played them. I think that was when he was injured when we played them last year. That feels like a nice moment as well. A nice indicator of the difference between the two is how. I mean, I think Tyler Bindon is our best centre-back right here and right now. A lot of people talk about the potential of him. I think he's just the best centre-back we have at the moment. He was outstanding against New Caledonia. I think he might be a starting level player for America as well. I don't know enough about the American soccer team to say that for sure, but I am pretty confident in saying that he would fix, well, he would help most teams around the world get better at what they're trying to do. But he chose us instead of them. So now they're in shambles, and we seem to be in a great place, and we've qualified for the World Cup that they're co-hosting. So it's yeah, happy days.
And when you like, I don't expect Kiwi sports fans to really be tapped in with USA football and what's happening with their team and their footballing culture, but having hate observed and well, I don't want to say hate observed because I've enjoyed it. Like I'm having fun. I'm loving it. Right. So I'm not hating what I'm watching. I'm enjoying it. And to be honest, I don't want to use hate watch anymore because again, like the TV1 news, I like seeing not just TV1, but 6 o'clock, maybe New Zealand Herald, maybe stuff. I like seeing how shit their coverage is. I like seeing our point of difference right there. So I enjoy it. I like seeing the flaws of English cricket. I love it. There's no hate there. So I forgive myself for using the term hate. And obviously we're peace and love around these ways. So we don't hate anything. But having observed USA soccer, USA football, why on earth would Tyler Bindon choose to play for USA over New Zealand? Like he's got equal, maybe not equal, maybe a bit this way, but that way. But there's two viable options. The All Whites, the senior players, the young players, the coaches, the staff, everyone loves being together. Everyone loves, and this is one of the few times I actually feel like, because of course all the athletes, all the big people in the world, they want to inspire people, and that's admirable, but chill out. Like, I'm not here to inspire anyone. I'm just here to talk my shit. That's what we do. But I genuinely feel like this All Whites team, New Zealand football, they're actually genuinely inspiring Kiwi football fans. They're actually changing how they're changing the Kiwi football culture right in front of us, right here, right now. And that flows down to how people support Auckland FC, Wellington Phoenix, and the domestic football that you cover so well. But why would Tyler Bindon choose to be part of a kind of poisonous USA soccer system compared to what the All Whites are doing with New Zealand football? There's no contest. And it's fantastic that Tyler Bindon is contributing to Aotearoa football. You've got the
well, can I just say there's no contest now, but 7 or 8 years ago, another guy called Tyler Boyd, had the same decision to make, and he picked America. And I think at that time, that was probably the right decision to make as well. And at this time, Tyler Bindon's made the right decision, which is going in the other way. Like, so Tyler Boyd was making that call post Anthony Hudson era. New Zealand football, a little bit of a shambles. They'd missed out on an Olympics that he probably would have been old enough to go to because they couldn't get their paperwork done properly. And there wasn't an automatic qualification for World Cup, so it was a thing where if you play for America, you might go to a World Cup if you can make the squad. If you play for New Zealand, you probably won't. Well, that's changed now as well, and yeah, it's a nice just think even just from those two examples, the Tyler Boyd one back then and the Tyler Bindon one more recently. That alone sort of tells the tale of how much the Kiwi football and culture has improved, just even in that short space of time, let alone over the bigger journey going even further back.
Yeah, you do. Like, this is the reason why we're big up in the All Whites and big up in New Zealand football, because it wasn't always this way. Like, they were kind of shit, not just a mediocre performing team, but there were shitty vibes with the coaches, shitty vibes in the front office and all that stuff, which we talked about as we always do. We keep it a full steak and cheese here, but shout out Tyler Boyd. Hasn't played for USA since 2019.
So he's getting close to maybe getting a recall this time last year, and then he did his ACL, so he hasn't even played for about 9 months. It's yeah, bit of a rough one.
I did see.
Maybe they're bad enough now he might swing back around and get back in.
But his MLS profile, Tyler Boyd, 165 pounds, birthplace, Tauranga, Aotearoa.
Yeah.
Obviously, they don't say Aotearoa, they say New Zealand. because they're well within their right too. But so Tyler Bindon, the real Tyler, the Kiwi Tyler. You say centre back starts under Darren Baisley. Michael Boxall's had 12. Nando Peineker's had 10. Tyler Bindon's already got 9.
Well, plus yesterday as well. So he's up
10.
to 10. Boxall's up to 13.
And Peineker didn't start?
Nope.
So Tyler Bindon's had as many caps as a starting centre back as Nando Peineker. And you seem pretty confident in your belief that Tyler Bindon's better than Nando Peineker.
Well, I think we've also learned now that Darren Baisley believes that too, because he didn't make a single change between the semi-final and the final. Obviously, that was what he thought was his best 11. And yeah, that involved Nando Peineker sitting on the bench, which is the right decision because, like Nando Peineker, he's had like 18 months of the best football of his career, not just since he joined Auckland FC. He's been great at Auckland FC, but actually he was really good for Sligo Rovers before he left them as well. There was this big trend of like whenever he played, they did great. When he didn't play, which it happened a fair bit because he had a couple injuries, including a broken rib at one stage, they weren't so good without him. So there's nothing against Nando Peineker. Nando Peineker is an excellent player. Tyler Bindon signed by Nottingham Forest, who might make the Champions. Like he might be playing Champions League next season. There's no comparison. He's unreal, and like I said, really good against North Carolina, New Caledonia. Got the Americans confused for a second there. Too much American soccer. Yeah. Shout out to the North Carolina Courage, though. Once upon a time, back when Abby Erceg used to play there and win championships all the time, and she could have fixed some of their culture, but no. Yeah, he was great against New Caledonia in a situation where like you don't have that much to do defensively because the All Whites obviously dominated the game. But what he had to do, he did flawlessly and emphatically. Like just strong challenges, decisive work. Like, this dude's just turned 20 years old a month ago. You know, he shouldn't be. But if you've followed the Flying Kiwi stuff, which we've talked about this plenty of times on the podcast, tracking the Tyler Bindon stuff, like he does this every week for Reading. Like he plays like this all the time. His average game is like an 8 out of 10 performance. That's the average game. We didn't even have to see him making goal line clearances acrobatically, hanging off the crossbar. We didn't have to see him scoring an overhead kick in this game. He didn't even need to dip that far into his bag. Like he just had to do his average performance, which made him probably the best player on the pitch. Like that guy is such an incredible talent. He's such a good player, and it's a distraction when people talk about his potential because you don't have to worry about his potential. He's good enough now. You know, he's already there. He'll get better, but he's already there.
And like I imagine, like Boxall, he might be building towards the World Cup, but like for the future of New Zealand football, I mean, you got Bindon. So if you got the best centre back pairing is Boxall and Bindon right now, well then if Boxall retires or he moves on, well then it's Peineker, Bindon, and then you've got Finn Sermon competing for selection as well.
Which I think long term it'll be Bindon Sermon, and that has the potential to be our best ever partnership. You know, those two. Not only are they awesome players, but they complement each other really well too, in how they play. Where you got Bindon, who's the classy kind of ball player, and Sermon, who's just the rugged guy with the crooked nose who'll win every single header and diving blocks and all this stuff. It's such a perfect centre back partnership.
Like I'm fully with you about Peineker versus Bindon. I'm more Nando than Sermon, just right now.
For now, potentially, yeah.
Well, for me, certainly. Like I'm Nando. Well,
for now, it's Boxall and Bindon, but if Boxall wasn't there, yeah, I think maybe right now Peineker starts and Bindon just plays on the right side instead. In 2 years, when Boxall isn't playing anymore, by then it will be Sermon.
That's your opinion. My opinion. By then, it will be Nando. Is he's Zen, right? Nando and Joe Bell, they're Zen.
Yeah, they're the Zens. The Zen
so we
brothers.
got a nice little Zen core there. You got Peineker centre back. You got Joe Bell working around the midfield. So shout out to all my Zen brothers and sisters. Point being, we're going to explore a little bit of Blackcaps. We talk about the youngsters rugby league. We're talking about Sam Ruthe, but there's all these like fantastic young sports people, which is just the theme of the podcast for the last like 12, 18 months, 2 years. And that is evident in that group of centre backs, like Bindon, Heineke, Sermon, and you've got a whole bunch of other players, because I've also got here your most minutes in Oceania World Cup qualification.
Well, I can give you the updated one after yesterday as well, because I did whip that up. One of these bloody spreadsheets.
Well, Marko Stamenic better be at the top of the list.
He played 90 minutes yesterday, so you know he's still at the top of the list, and he's actually extended it a bit. Stamenic, 422 minutes. Next most was Bindon and Crocombe, 360 minutes, just 4 90-minute performances, and they each sat out the game against Samoa. Matt Garbutt, 358. Libby Kakache, 345. Chris Wood, 331. Joe Bell, 298. A little bit of a drop to Michael Boxall, 270. Tim Payne, 242. He was injured for a couple of the games as well. He might have been higher. Elijah Just, 238.
Yeah.
Sarpreet Singh, 233, etc.
Yeah, I don't care.
I think that's the top 10.
I'm just looking at the top of the list so Chris Wood, he plays for Nottingham Forest. Tyler Bindon, he's going to Nottingham Forest. Marko Stamenic is signed to Nottingham Forest. He's out on loan, and he's just played the most minutes for New Zealand in the World Cup qualifiers, which, like, there's still... do you still kind of have some uncertainty around where Stamenic fits into Nottingham Forest moving forward? Like, he's out on loan, but would he actually go back to Nottingham Forest? Or will the Chris Wood, Bindon, Aotearoa connection, combined with Marko Stamenic getting consistent game time for the All Whites in the centre of the midfield, do you think that will pull Stamenic into Nottingham Forest next season, giving us that Wood, Bindon, Stamenic trio?
I think it does help that that connection there. It's certainly at least help him settle and give him a bit more of an idea on like how he's playing in the team. That'll certainly help. A couple of allies there to give him a few tips and tricks. Certainly Chris Wood, at least. Tyler Bindon's in the same situation as Stamenic. He'll be trying to figure it out himself. Yeah, 3 of the top 6 for minutes played throughout these qualifiers are contracted to Nottingham Forest. Sweet, cool, love that. I have a little bit more clarity because he's done a little bit of media work, and I think he mentioned that the plan is to go back to Nottingham Forest for preseason. So whether he can stick with it after preseason, they might decide like, you're good, but you're not quite there yet. We've signed you till like 2029 or something like that. We'll give you another year out on loan somewhere else. But right now, it's not like he's going to stay at Olympiacos, definitely. He will go back to Nottingham Forest in between. Tyler Bindon will go to Nottingham Forest as well for the start of preseason. I think Bindon will stay with the first team. I think he's good enough to do that. And there's been a couple of defenders, like backup defenders. I know they're an Irish fella who they've sort of moved on from. So there is a little bit of a window of opportunity there. Stamenic might need another midfielder to disappear, but that happens all the time in the Premier League. Players come and go, so that might well happen as well. And while he hasn't had like the best impact at Olympiacos, that doesn't necessarily matter. I think it's also about timing as much as it is about those other things. And he hasn't had a great fit with Olympiacos just because of the squad they have, didn't really have space for him. But I don't think that necessarily counts as against him. I think Nottingham Forest are going to bring him back for preseason, and they're going to look at and evaluate the player that they signed, not the guy who, like, they're not going to look at his performances for Olympiacos. Look at the profile of the guy they decided to sign a year ago, whatever it was. So there's hope. There's certainly hope for all 3 of them.
And of course, Matt Garbutt. So we're still no idea what he's up to as far as club footy goes. Did he play in these games, and did he play well? Like, how did you view the Matt Garbutt situation? Because that is still, like, I mean, it's not as interesting as the Nottingham Forest trio. Might be as interesting as
it might be if he joins them. Maybe they'll just sign him as well. Agent Woodsy on the case.
But there's these funky pockets that I've just kind of sorted out in my mind. We got the Zen brothers. That's not a real one. That's just a funky one. It's a funky one. But you've got the like centre back group, but then you've also got that left back situation. Right. So just answer these questions quickly for me.
There's no left back situation. So
who played left back in the final?
Kakache. But they did make a sub at halftime where De Vries came on at left back and Kakache moved for the further forward, which has obviously added fuel to the fire of all the people who say that maybe that's how they should start. And Francis De Vries, he's so good. He's what a crosser. He's got to be in the 11, but he doesn't have to be in the 11. All our corners were really good. Kakache was whipping in great corners. Payne was whipping in unreal corners. Francis De Vries came on, got an assist from one of them. Fantastic. Like he did the job. They obviously wanted another crosser because our crossing was the best thing. So it's like halftime plan. Let's just the guys are a little unsettled. Let's simplify things. Like Pete Seeger once said, be a genius in just simplification and just cross the ball in the box. And then, of course, Chris Wood got injured straight after that, and they had to bring on Costa Barbarosas, which kind of spoiled the plan, but not really because they still scored a Michael Boxall header from a corner. But that's against New Caledonia in Oceania qualifying. Like you can't just only be a good crosser. De Vries, love him, but he'd get torched by Premier League wingers running at him. Whereas Kakache plays in Serie A every week. He's used to those. He knows how to handle himself in those situations. At the World Cup, that's not a question. But fair play. De Vries has got, I think, a goal and 3 assists in limited minutes throughout these qualifiers. Like he had a great impact. He did what he was there to do.
Yeah, but he plays for Auckland FC.
And
he's got to be first 11 for New Zealand. Like, it's got to happen. But that's just depth. That's the depth we have. Where you can completely change your tactics by bringing on De Vries. But when De Vries came on, Kakache stayed on the field, is what you're saying, and he pushed further forward. So that's an interesting little pocket. The Sarpreet Singh is always an interesting pocket. Was this kind of one of his best periods of All Whites football that you've seen him play?
I think he's almost always great when he plays for the All Whites. I thought he was brilliant in the first 30 odd minutes against Fiji. And then after that, as a team, it was like they were about 3-0 up already. I think they sort of decided they would try score some cooler goals rather than just the crossing it to Chris Wood's head. It was a little bit more intricate trying to interplay stuff, which Singh was very involved in. And he has a tendency to get a little too unselfish in those moments. So there was some of that where he's like, he went from being unreal to just a good solid, well done. You played really well there. You got a goal, you got an assist. Like, good performance. Less impactful in the final because of the way the game went, where New Caledonia really just sat everyone back and defended stoutly, and he didn't have a lot of room to operate. But he was still, he was more impactful than Garbett. I didn't think Garbett was. He was both rusty and also situations that weren't quite suited to his style of play, which is a bit better at. You'd rather him running into open spaces, and there's just no open spaces against teams who play like that. So there's, at least he got some minutes, though. He hasn't had any of those at club level for a long time, so that's nice for him.
So Sarpreet Singh's playing in Portugal right now.
That's the one.
And Matt Garbett isn't anywhere.
Just hanging out under 21s at his Dutch team, staying busy, trying to stay fit. Darren Baisley said he'd played some games for the under 21s. I can't find any proof of that, but I guess at that level you play a lot of friendly and closed door games and stuff where maybe that's not necessarily going to be reported on. But so I'll take his word for it when he says it. I'm certainly not going to doubt him. He knows Matt Garbett a lot better than I know Matt Garbett. So if he says that, yeah, sweet as. He's at least had some minutes for the under 21s team. But yeah, nothing for the senior team. My one thing where that might change, and I wonder if this was part of the thinking, is if perhaps he's seeing if he can outlast the coach. Like if the coach gets sacked, a new coach comes in, everyone gets a clean slate, he's back in the mix. That might be a situation. I don't know if it's necessarily something he's planning for, but that might be something that happens before the season is out. We will wait and see. That could be a situation.
The Wellington Phoenix Women had a 2-0 loss at the Porirua Park Fortress. That wasn't much of a fortress against the Mariners.
Nope. You might be winning that. It wasn't a bet, but you might be winning that the will they, won't they make the playoffs thing. It's not looking good for my hopeful prediction of last week.
Yeah. Don't mess with my my vibe assessment. Yeah, but they're only 2 points behind Brisbane Roar, who are 6th. That is the finals cutoff for the A-League finals. And Brisbane Roar have a game in hand, though, so that works in their favour. But they've
I think that's midweek against Melbourne City, so hopefully they lose that.
Well, they've lost their last 3 games. Wellington Phoenix have only lost their last 2 games, but it wasn't a inspiring Wellington Phoenix performance aside from the moment behind you there. Do you have anything to add, or is it just kind of commiserations, melancholy for the Wellington Phoenix women who are still, well, as of right now, they're still yet to make the A-League finals, and it looks like they will not be in the finals as I have already predicted, but it's still possible.
Well, how about this? If only the second halves counted, the Phoenix would be fourth. But unfortunately, they also have to play first halves. And even when they play well in first halves, as they often do, they seem to be a team that starts really well. Like this standard pattern, which I think sounds encouraging. I don't think it is encouraging though. When you actually play the same way and lose most weeks, that's not you're just repeating your mistakes. That's not a good thing at all. But they do tend to start well and then not score a goal and then concede a silly one just before halftime. And then maybe they concede another silly one after halftime like they did here. Maybe they get an equalizer. Maybe they even go and get a winner. Maybe they concede it. But they're almost always, how often, what have I got here? They've only scored the first goal in 7 of their 20 matches. And most of those weren't recently. So I think, let's see if I can, unfortunately, I wrote this down in paragraph form rather than in what you call it. In first halves, first halves they scored 7 goals in 20 matches, and 3 times they've kept a halftime lead. 3 halftime leads in 20 matches is awful, and only scoring 7 goals in 20 first halves is awful. Like they're not good enough to keep. They've had some great wins through the season where they have had these second half comebacks where they've just turned it on, scored a couple goals, flipped the script, fixed matters from where they were at halftime, good adjustments, whatever. But those adjustments haven't got them to where they're able to just do that in the first half instead and be 2-0 up at halftime instead of being 1-0 down and having to come back and win 2-1 or whatever. And they're just not good enough to keep being able to make those comebacks. We saw that against Central Coast where they ran out of answers, they ran out of steam. And unfortunately, it is looking like that is going to cost them a spot in the finals. There is still hope because, if Brisbane lose again to Melbourne City, but also tire Melbourne City out and injure a few of their players, that when the Phoenix play them on the weekend, play Melbourne City on the weekend, maybe they have a chance. They've never beaten Melbourne City, though. In fact, I think they've lost every time they've played them, so I'm not holding my breath on that one. Paul Temple did say he wants to pick his best team every game, like try, take these games seriously, give them, while there's still any kind of mathematical chance he's going to go out there, pick his best team and try win. Yes, good, sweet as, but maybe, just maybe, that best team should employ a little bit more Ella Jerez, who did get 10 minutes off the bench against Central Coast, looked a bit like young players often do, playing at a senior level for, first time it's her first season at this level. She's played a fair bit of National League stuff, but in National League stuff, your speed and skill override things. Here in the A-League, the physicality is also quite a factor, and the speed of play, like the speed of the game, not just the speed of what you can do, but the way the game flows end to end and whatever. Like that's stuff that takes some time getting used to. And I thought there were promising signs from what she was trying to do in that one, and maybe not such promising outcomes, largely because of the reasons I mentioned, which is just simply a matter of adjusting and adapting to the level. And so if you give her as many minutes as you can over the rest of the season, which maybe that's just 10 minutes per game off the bench for the last 3 games, maybe that's all it is, that's still fine. Build a player like that up so that they can be more impactful next season, to more ready to to be a key contributor when it matters, when you got a clean slate, when you start again next season. I wouldn't say no if that's the situation. But yeah, unfortunately the top 6 stuff isn't looking great right now. It's hanging by a thread.
Let's roll into the Blackcaps. They've got a 3-1 T20 series lead over Pakistan. And we've also had the ODI squad announced. Big inclusions. Nick Kelly from Wellington, he's been in fantastic form, especially in the Plunket Shield. I think he has 4 centuries And what might happen here, which I think is the best case scenario, because for Reece Mariu to become the leading run scorer, that would have had to have mean Nick Kelly didn't score many runs in the last game coming up. But if Nick Kelly's now reporting to Blackcaps duty, he's not going to score any runs in the last game of Plunket Shield. So that presents the opportunity to Reece Mariu to, he only needs like 18 more runs. He's 18 runs behind Nick Kelly. So that would offer us the glorious situation of a young batter leading the run scoring in Plunket Shield, Super Smash with Matt Boyle, and Ford Trophy with Curtis Heafy. Nick Kelly currently has 749 runs, averaging 57.6, 4 centuries, 150. Reece Mariu has 731 runs, 81 average, 2 centuries, double century in there, and 350s. So Nick Kelly, he's in there, and we've also got Muhammad Abbas. We'll talk about some of those emerging players in a jiffy, because I also see Addy Ashok's in the squad as one of the spinners as well, which is a good selection for him. As always, you got to mention that Kane Williamson's not there, and it's all in the headlines. Like, Kane Williamson's not there. Kane Williamson yet to play for New Zealand again. But my setup, the thing I kept thinking about when I was watching the T20s, and I'm now thinking about it with Kane Williamson for the ODIs, I was like watching these T20s, this team doesn't need Devon Conway. This team doesn't need Tim Southey. This team doesn't need Kane Williamson. Like, I'm not watching these T20s, whether it's Jacob Duffy just going crazy in these T20s. The emergence of Zach Folks. You can inject any other team. You can go look at that top three: Seifert, Finn Allen, Mark Chapman. Well, Seifert and Allen are just smashing it, going crazy. Chapman's excellent. I don't watch that and think we desperately need to get Devon Conway and Kane Williamson and Tim Southey in this team. Gosh, it would be lovely if these guys were playing. Yes, of course. Well, the only realistic option right now is Kane Williamson, but even then, I don't view him as a fantastic, elite, certified, mandatory first 11 T20 cricketer right now. He's not that. He's a very good batter, the best batter ever from Aotearoa, but I don't think he's a T20 monster. But he's now on the T20 circuit, so shout out to him, because that's the funny thing. These guys get worse at T20 cricket, then they earn all the T20 opportunities. Like, that is pretty funny. But I don't look at these Blackcaps teams and think, oh, but this guy's missing. Oh, but we don't have this guy. Where's this guy? I watch these Blackcaps teams, whether it's the T20 team or what's going to come up with the ODI team, and the feeling I'm having is this is a good cricket team. And it's a very interesting, again, like, because we focus on the players who are there, where a lot of other media, they focus on who is always missing for the Blackcaps. And like, I don't think many Kiwi cricket fans are watching this T20 series and thinking, golly gosh, we need Devon Conway. That's not happening. Oh, this team, where are the wickets coming from? They need some Southey. That's not happening. Like, this is the new kind of era of New Zealand cricket that we've been talking a lot about, where there's just a lot of really good cricketers, and that is flowing into this ODI series where Nick Kelly is deserving of his selection. He is just straight up and down one of the best batters in domestic cricket. And as I think Sam Wells said it in the squad announcement, like, he can bat anywhere in the lineup. He's a lefty. He's got 4 Plunket Shield centuries this summer, leading run scorer heading into the last round. So he can obviously show a bit of grit, but he's also a very frisky attacking stroke player who can, there's no reason why Nick Kelly couldn't earn T20 international selection. if he performs well in the ODI team. He's just a really good batter who deserves this opportunity. And then you've got another youngster entering the squad, Muhammad Abbas, who is one of the freakiest batting talents. Like, he deserves his ODI squad selection, but I don't know if Muhammad Abbas is a better batter than Matt Boyle. I don't know if he's a better batter than Reece Madiu. Like, there's a lot of other really good young batters on the scene as well. But I think the thing that has seen Muhammad Abbas earn selection is he's bowling really good at the moment. He's one of the most efficient bowlers in the Plunket Shield right now. And he's getting his overs up because he wasn't always bowling a lot earlier in his career with Wellington, like maybe earlier in his career as in last season before that. But now he's getting the overs for Wellington. And the thing about Muhammad Abbas, he's a lefty seamer. He's not no plain Jane kind of all-rounder bowling off spin, or he's bowling 120 Ks. Like, he might only bowl 125 Ks, 130 Ks, but he's a lefty seamer. So he's a completely different profile as far as all-rounders go. And he is a run scorer. And he is a very aesthetically pleasing run scorer. He can smash it, but he's also... Let me try and figure out his... He's also got a very good first-class batting average. So like Nick Kelly, he can smash it. But he's also scored long-form runs. He's 21 years old, averaging 36 in first-class cricket. He's already got 2 centuries, 650s. 34.9 average in one-day cricket. He's already got his one-day century. Very healthy T20 record, averaging 26 with a strike rate of 135. And it's these dudes, as well as the other guys who are desperate to play for New Zealand, that just make me feel like I don't actually really watch this Blackcaps team and miss anyone. Like, I don't miss the players who aren't there. I'm thoroughly enjoying the players that are there because they're actually really good. And hot take, some of these dudes might actually be better than the players who aren't there.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really been any time in recent history where Kane Williamson would have played this series. So I don't know why, first of all, why anyone would be surprised or why it would be news or anything like that. And then, yeah, also, I think by now, surely we have a pretty good body of evidence that the Blackcaps use these types of series to build out their depth ahead of, it's particularly now in ODI cricket, where they've just had a Champions Trophy, which had quite a fresh look to it, that squad. There's an ODI World Cup, I think, in 2 years, so they're not necessarily building to anything in the short term. Perfect time to be looking for, with that squad, to be building things out a little bit more, and given guys like Abbas, given guys like Kelly a little bit of an entry. Has Adi Ashok played ODIs before? He's definitely played T20s.
Yeah, he's played a few...
Couple overseas games, probably.
No, I'm not sure if he's played ODIs. He's definitely, he's played for New Zealand for sure. And he is the second best spinner in Plunket Shield right now behind Peter Younghusband. He's got 18 wickets, averaging 33. Now, if you're saying he's averaging 33, like, that's kind of mediocre, that's pretty good for a New Zealand spinner. Peter Younghusband is third for wickets as the best spinner, averaging 30. So Adi Ashok, he's doing well. He's definitely doing well in domestic cricket. Played 2 ODIs with a wicket, and he's played 1 T20 with a wicket.
Well, there you go. That's something. And then even with the T20 squad the T20 squad we've seen in the series against Pakistan here, where there wasn't really an obvious Kelly, Abbas, Ashok kind of newer introduction, but we've seen guys like Tim Seifert and Finn Allen reasserting their commitment, and also putting in performances that show that they deserve to still be in the wider Blackcaps contention as well. And I think that's pretty educational, and that's pretty helpful too, to know this stuff. So yeah, I certainly haven't been sitting there watching Tim Seifert slap sixes around the park, being like, Yeah, but where's Devon Conway? I haven't even been sitting there being like, yeah, but where's Rachin Ravindra? I'm like, I know where Rachin Ravindra is. I know where Devon Conway is, and I'm enjoying watching Tim Seifert bat.
And that points like there is a difference between these two squads in the formats because T20s, they are still building towards a major tournament. I think they got a T20 World Cup in India, obviously, later on this year, maybe. So that's why you might have like Ish Sodhi, Finn Allen, Tim Seifert, those type of characters getting the T20 reps for New Zealand. But then you go ODI mode. Okay, we're fresh after a major tournament. So now we're going to ease some other players into the ODI team and make sure that they're getting the one-day reps and also integrating them into the Blackcaps, which is a key development aspect of what they do. Chapman, Allen, and Seifert have scored most of the runs. They've all got over 100 runs with strike rates of 180 or higher. So they're doing the heavy lifting for the Blackcaps in this T20 series. Michael Bracewell's been fantastic, 82 runs, strike rate of 178. The only kind of weakness is the middle order, but who cares? They're winning. Like, guys are going to score runs, guys are not going to score runs. And at the end of the day, I'm not too fussed about this area of weakness in that middle order because they've won the T20 series. Like, it's all right. Yeah, like, yeah, if we're wanting to score 300 runs in a T20 international, then they need to keep the momentum flowing from Finn Allen and Tim Seifert. But the key thing is that Allen, Seifert, and Chapman, they do the bulk of the batting. And whatever comes after that happens, but you got to be able to take wickets as well. Jacob Duffy's got 11 wickets as the best bowler. Then you go Ish Sodhi, 5 wickets. He's had a nice return to the Blackcaps. Folks, 4 wickets, averaging 17. So this is a good all-round performance from the bowling unit. And Jacob Duffy, he is the leading wicket taker with Lockie Ferguson. But again, do I look at this team and be like, they need Lockie Ferguson? No, because Jacob Duffy has been pretty good. Well, all the bowlers have been pretty good because it's not just Jacob Duffy stepping in for Lockie Ferguson. But when we go T20 internationals since the start of 2024, Jacob Duffy, 20 wickets, averaging 13. Like, that's really good for Jacob Duffy. Another notable one, Zach Folks, 13 wickets, averaging 23. That's pretty damn impressive as well. Ben Sears, 12 wickets, averaging 24. Duffy, Folks, Sears, they went at the T20 World Cup where the Blackcaps sucked last year. That seems interesting. Best batters in that period, Finn Allen, 478 runs at a strike rate of 175. That's pretty crazy. Then we go Chapman, Mitchell, Phillips, and Seifert, who have all scored over 280 runs. And aside from Phillips, the pedestrian Phillips, they all have strike rates over 140. Phillips is just walking along at 125, 27 strike rate. I also just want to highlight Michael Bracewell, because a lot of people, I think, well, they might, I don't know, who knows? But there might be some people who think Michael Bracewell is just a plodder. He's just kind of average at cricket. Michael Bracewell has an ODI batting average of 39.5 with a strike rate of 116. He's got a pretty solid bowling average of 32.6 as well. That's why he was a first 11 cricketer at the Champions Trophy. T20 internationals, he's averaging 23 with a strike rate of 139, and he's got a bowling average of 20.6. That's why Michael Bracewell.
So his batting average is above his bowling average in both of those formats.
Yes.
All-rounder, true all-rounder. Great stuff.
That's why he's there. You know, that's why he's playing a lot of cricket for New Zealand. And he, like, so Tom Latham's been playing Plunket Shield, not part of the T20 team, but Bracewell, Daryl Mitchell, Will O'Rourke had a little break, so he's not quite there. Will Young, he played Plunket Shield recently, got a 50. But it's mainly Daryl Mitchell and Michael Bracewell who are just like fizzing to play cricket for Aotearoa, which is kind of crazy, like, because they're both really good T20 cricketers who do play T20 cricket around the world, but I mean, they don't need a break. They don't take a break. They just keep playing for New Zealand. So shout out to Beastie Bracewell and Daryl Mitchell. Not sure, like, are there any other little pockets you want to ask me about for the Blackcaps T20 ODI stuff?
I don't know. Not particularly. We probably should keep the train rolling.
Let's get the train rolling to the White Ferns, who have been smoked by Australia in 2 games, 2 T20s, after being smoked by Australia in 2 ODIs last year. This is a very tricky zone to assess the White Ferns because a younger, fresher squad beat Sri Lanka. A young, fresh White Ferns squad is never going to really challenge Australia. Australia are the best team in the world by a significant margin. So I can't say that the White Ferns who played against Sri Lanka are better than the White Ferns who played against Australia. But then I'm also like, well, I mean, Amelia Kerr's been their best player in the 2 T20s against Australia. But I don't really feel like the other players, like Leah Tahuhu, Sophie Devine, Susie Bates hasn't done much against Australia. Like the other senior players haven't necessarily helped Amelia Kerr a whole lot. They haven't like made the White Ferns more competitive against Australia, which to be honest is to be expected because they got smoked in the Rose Bowl and they get rolled, smoked, destroyed every time they play against Australia with their best players in the team. So at this stage, we can't really expect Devine, Tahuhu, Maddie Greens, Susie Bates. We can't expect them to help the White Ferns beat Australia. That's just how it is at the moment. And like the only young player who I think could help the White Ferns right now is Brie Illing. I think she would help their bowling attack with a point of difference because there's not much. There's no, whether it's a point of difference, whether it's someone who can take a wicket or two or three. There's not much of that in the White Ferns bowling attack against Australia. So it's just tricky to kind of put the pieces together. Like I can tell you Amelia Kerr, she's awesome. We already know Amelia Kerr's awesome. I can tell you Jess Kerr, like her and Michael Bracewell, their development into genuine all-rounders is fantastic. And I want to put Jess Kerr in that realm as well because she has been awesome all summer long. And she has contributed with the bat all summer, but she's also contributed with the ball. She is the leading wicket taker for New Zealand in T20 internationals since the T20 World Cup. She's got 5 wickets. No one else has 3 wickets. So Jess Kerr's doing really good as an all-rounder. So the Kerr sisters, fantastic. I mean, Georgia Plimmer's still scoring aggressive runs up the top of the order. I like what she's doing. Holly Ingles, I think, has solidified herself as the best wicketkeeper batter in Aotearoa. Outside of that, it's kind of just like status quo for the White Ferns against Australia. It would be easier for me to assess the White Ferns if they had the same squad against Sri Lanka than Australia. But the squads are different. And I'm also pondering how the vibe is different. And this is it's a tough kind of zone to assess because Sophie Devine did take like a well-being break this summer. She, like, how do you talk about it? She just kind of drags the team down.
Well, you know what my feeling was about this is it feels eerily similar to watching the last year of Tim Southee's Test career and the last year of Neil Wagner's Test career, and Ross Taylor was probably only the last month or so, but the end of that one, Sophie Devine said she's committed to playing on for years to come, or something, something like that. It was take the team forward in perpetuity, but it feels so much like that Tim Southee thing where you're keeping him in the team, hoping he's going to come around to form, or at least be the player that closer to the player that he was. And I don't feel that watching the White Ferns. I I mean, I don't feel I do feel that watching the White Ferns, but I don't feel like there is a light at the end of the tunnel necessarily. But then Sophie Devine's done it so many times in the past. You also it's hard to discount that. So
you've got
tricky.
the watching Sophie Devine play cricket.
Yeah.
She had bad fielding mishaps against Australia. Her wicket was a bouncer with Polly Ingles standing up. That might have been intentional, but it also might have just been a pleasant accident. And so it's like, okay, I kind of want to say she lowered the fielding standard. From what I've watched of the White Ferns over the last 3 weeks or so, Sophie Devine's fielding has been bad. She's not doing much with the ball. Like, she did take a wicket, but she's got 1 wicket and 4 overs, going for 12.2. She is the most expensive bowler for the White Ferns since the T20 World Cup, basically this summer. The second most expensive bowler is Leah Tahuhu. The third most expensive bowler, Rosemary Meir, who's just been smashed around by Australia. But Sophie Devine, this is the tricky thing, right? Because Sophie Devine, she has 4 ducks in her last 6 innings, either side of her well-being break. So her 4 ducks in her last 6 innings stretch before her break and after her break. She did hit 38 runs in a Super Smash game. Let me check in the strike rate. Because Sophie Devine's T20 international strike rate is going down. She is not smashing boundaries as everyone expects her to do. She just doesn't do it anymore. Her 38 that she scored in the Super Smash, strike rate of 108. That is Sophie Devine batting in the Super Smash, where she is a genuine bully. She is one of those cricketers playing in the Super Smash where you're just like, good luck bowling today. I just remember her smashing Otago when Otago, all their bowlers were young, Eden Carson, Emma Black, all those characters, and she was bullying them. And funnily enough, this 38 runs came against Otago. 38 runs, strike rate of 108. That's not Sophie Devine. She had 1 duck before that, 2 ducks after that in the Super Smash. So in the Super Smash, 3 of her 4 innings were ducks. Then we come in. She returns from her break. She does score 39 not out in the first T20 International. Good runs. Strike rate of 108. The White Ferns innings stalled when Sophie Devine got to the crease. She wasn't middling the ball. She wasn't rotating the strike. Somehow the 2 ladies from Tawa have no chemistry running between the wickets. There was almost a run out 4 times. But this is not Sophie Devine smashing boundaries. This is Sophie Devine struggling for every run. Then, second T20 International, she gets a first ball duck. So it's just a tricky situation because she has taken a break for her well-being. And I don't know I don't know what's happening. Because she's not making the White Ferns better. And that is a concern. And I think that concern might stretch out to Leah Tahuhu. She has taken 2 wickets in this series, so credit to her. The only player who I feel really makes the White Ferns better, they're a stronger team, is Amelia Kerr. And she's one of the younger players. Like if you just said, okay, Amelia Kerr, you're the leader, and we're just going young around you, I want to be, I want to be mad at it.
Well, you don't even have to say young around her. You just say we'll pick the players who are scoring some runs and taking some wickets.
And that's the thing. Like a lot of the players scoring runs, taking wickets in domestic cricket, they are younger players. Like you can say, well, like, but then you've also got like Bella James, Polly Ingalls, who are a bit older, but they're just entering the White Ferns, so you can still fill the team with those players. But that's never going to happen, so it's just whatever. But like I expect the youngsters to do something in home series against Sri Lanka. But then they're always going to struggle against Australia. But when you're coming up against the better teams, like Susie Bates doesn't score runs, Brooke Halliday doesn't score runs, Maddie Green doesn't score runs, Mir, Tahuhu, they don't take wickets. Eden Carson has not taken a T20 wicket in the period since the T20 World Cup. 4 games, 12 overs, no wickets, 7.8. She's a better T20 bowler than a one-day bowler. But right now, she doesn't have a wicket, so I can't say she's been awesome. It's a very strange situation. And, I mean, this isn't a strange White Ferns situation because I expect them to lose to Australia. I would hope someone would actually step up alongside Amelia Kerr, let's just say the Kerr sisters, because I like Jess Kerr. I love what she's doing. It would be nice if someone actually stood up beside the Kerr sisters and said, no, we're going to take it to the Aussies. We're going to challenge them. We're going to rip in and compete. Like, that would be great. I don't think the youngsters are going to do it right now. The concern is that the senior players don't do it either. So that's kind of interesting, kind of concerning. But it all just falls like, again, I will like to find some Lord of the Rings wisdom for mindfulness over the next week or so. But then in Lord of the Rings, it's just constant, like when they're at battle, you know, the light, the sunlight. When the dark forces are there, Tolkien tells you they're there because it gets dark. Like there's the never-ending night, like that type of thing, where the dawn doesn't come, it just stays dark. The Sophie Divine vibe right now is dark, it's heavy, and it's not interesting. It's kind of sad. And I mean, this is after she took a break. So I don't know, like, what's going to happen. Hopefully, Sophie Devine just comes out, third T20, smashes it everywhere, no worries. All's well that ends well. White Ferns win the series in their typical fashion, lose the first 2 games, win the third game, honkadori, nothing I just said matters. That is the best case scenario. I'm just telling you what I've seen and felt from the 2 games they've played, which is after they got smoked in the one days last summer. Or late last year. In the Plunket Shield, ND top of the table. We got ND, Wellington, Canterbury all competing for the championship heading into the last round, I believe, depending on what happens. And the last round starts on Saturday. CD hosting Auckland. Auckland the last, CD are 4th. Wellington, Canterbury. That's an interesting game. That is in Wellington. Otago hosting ND in Dunedin. As I said, with the run scoring, we got Nick Kelly, Reece Mariu, top of the table. Then we go Dane Cleaver, Jeet Raval. Thorne Parks is someone you need to learn about. He is 5th for runs, averaging 40.8. He's 24 years old, averaging 34.6 in first-class cricket, 37.6 in one-day cricket. So watch out for Thorne Parks. And it's just a whole bunch of like veteran performers there. Same with the bowling rankings. Logan Van Beek leading wicket taker, 30 wickets at an average of 22.4. Scott Kugelheim 2nd, Peter Younghusband 3rd, Jared Mackay 4th, Brett Hampton, Liam Dudding, Michael Ray, Angus McKenzie. Then we get to Cameron Paul. Cameron Paul took a FIFA for Canterbury, and so we've seen Zach Folks, Mitch Hay, and of course Will O'Rourke, who's not actually from Canterbury, but he started with Canterbury. They've all gone into the Blackcaps. They all look pretty good in the Blackcaps. Mitch Hay's just like learning how to bat in international cricket. That's all right. He is still in the one-day squad. So again, he's just learning. But then Canterbury have Matt Boyle, who was the best batter in the Super Smash, and he is averaging 33.3 in the Plunket Shield, 1 century, a 50, smashed some sixes in the last round. 22 years old, averaging 29.9 in first-class cricket. He's on the up, but he's fresh off a fantastic Super Smash. Reece Madiu, dominant in the Plunket Shield. Those two dudes are like on the rise behind Folks, behind Hay coming out of Canterbury, but we've also got Cameron Paul. He has 18 wickets at an average of 21, and he is 20 years old. In his first-class career, he's averaging 21. That's his whole career. He did take 5 wickets in 3 Ford Trophy games, averaging 14.8. He's a very good all-rounder. Like, he's kind of similar to his Darfield homie, Zach Folks. Really good all-rounders who I think are going to get a lot better as batters moving forward. But he's a good seamer coming through the Canterbury system. And he's someone to watch out for because bowls with decent pace, gets a bit of outswing, and he just always takes wickets. And that's in a Canterbury attack alongside Michael Ray, Fraser Sheet, Angus McKenzie, and those type of lads as well. So watch out for Cameron Paul, but watch out for the second wave of Canterbury youngsters coming through over the next year or so. Because Reece Madiu is the best long-form batter in Aotearoa. And to be honest, he's probably the best long-form batting prodigy since you know who. Like, that's crazy to say, but I think he's that. Matt Boyle, fantastic Super Smash. And Cameron Paul's just come onto the radar. Speaking of middle names, Cameron Behrens Paul. Behrnes. I prefer
Behrens.
Yeah. I prefer Zen personally. So yes, that's
easier to spell.
So shout out to Canterbury. I like what they're doing. But of course, the next players up for the Blackcaps, Nick Kelly, Mohamed Abbas coming out of Wellington. Neither of them actually started with Wellington. Nick Kelly started with ND, then went to Otago, then went to Wellington. Mohamed Abbas did start with Wellington, but he's from Auckland. And he moved down. Azza Abbas got a job as a bowling coach, I think, for Wellington. So then Mohamed Abbas moved to Wellington as well. Right, let's finish with some Warriors key points. I just want to lay out these key details for the Warriors, because it's pretty interesting. The first thing to know about the Warriors is that they have the best completion rate in the NRL. They're completing at 85%. Next best, Tigers, 83%. Warriors play Tigers on Sunday evening, 8 p.m., I believe. So that sets up that game. And this gives us an insight into how the Warriors are playing their footy, because like I talked last week about injecting Halasima and Vaimonga later in the game. Vaimonga actually came on against the Roosters in the first half, but the premise is still the same. They're playing the long game. They're playing patient footy because they want to set up the win late in the game. And I think both tries, I think it was the same story as the Sea Eagles game, where the Warriors just went into the grind, and then Harris Tavita scores his try in the 65th minute. Leotawa scores in the 70th minute. So they win the game at the end of the game. having the best completion rate for the second season in a row helps you win the long game. One thing told me, or reinforced this idea about the Warriors playing the long game, and it was Andrew Webster saying they were playing the long game. But there was also something that I observed. So the Warriors, they finished their set. I think they're first for post-contact meters as well. If you're completing your sets, you're running hard, you're going to be getting a lot of post-contact meters. And wait, let me just go even deeper into this, because I got to give a shout out to my boy, the big doggy, my favorite player in the world, the one and only former Dragon, Jackson Ford, shining in his best role, bench man. Like, it kind of pissed me off when he was starting, but to be fair, everything in that first game sucked. So whatever. Somehow, so the Warriors are first in post-contact meters as well as being first in completion rate. Stash that away with your Aotearoa vitamins. Shans Nickel Clockstar, 30 runs, 316 meters, whatever, 10 meters per run, 30 runs. That was crazy. So he's obviously leading the Warriors for post-contact meters. Somehow, he has one more post-contact meter than Jackson Ford. Jackson Ford is the second best post-contact meter eater at the Warriors. Shout out to Jackson Ford. I sees you. I didn't see you in round one. Oh, you pissed me off, to be honest. You didn't piss me off. Andrew Webster pissed me off by selecting you to start. But he's turned it around. Shout out to Jackson Ford. Big effort against the Roosters. What was my actual point that I was trying to make, though? So the Warriors, they get the big post-contact meters. Nickel Clockstar's running. Jackson Ford's just charging downfield like Jason Taumalolo. Shout out to Jackson Ford. And then the Warriors just do a bomb. And they bomb to Daniel Tupou. They're on the other side of the field next time. They bomb to Dom Young. So the Warriors are just kicking in the air to the two tallest players on the field. That doesn't make much sense. But it makes sense because they don't give a shit. This is the thing of 2023. What is it all about? Turn the ball over down their end of the field, smash them. Why did the Warriors keep kicking to the two tallest players on the field? Because they didn't care. They wanted them to catch the ball, smash them. And that's what they did. And then they win the game by just doing that over and over again. The closer they get to the try line, the more they compete for the ball. Chanel Harris-Tavita scored his try, competing for the ball because he kicked 30 to 40 meters out from the Roosters' try line. But the Warriors kicking constantly to Daniel Tupou and Dom Young told me they don't care about competing. Those kicks are the sole purpose of those kicks is to turn the ball over down the Roosters' end of the field and smash them. And they always smash the opponent down their end of the field. That's what happens when you got James Fisher-Harris, Mitch Barnett, Aaron Clark, Jackson Ford, the freak himself, Vaimunga, Niokore, Halasima. Those dudes smash the opposition players as they're getting off their own try line, as they're getting out of their own territory. Now, of course, an Aussie commentator watches that and they're like, whoa, you got to compete for the ball. What are you doing? No, this is how the Warriors play their rugby league. They have the best completion rate in the NRL, and they just turn the ball over down there into the field, smash them, do it again, do it again, do it again. Can you keep up? Because if you can keep up, well, Halasima's entering the game. 60 minutes in. You're not going to be able to tackle him when you're tired. I've got two, so I had that trio, Fisher, Harris, Barnett, Aaron Clark. I'm not saying it's the best middle forward trio. I'm not saying Fisher Harris is the best prop. But I'm happy with those three players. I am happy putting those three players up against any middle forward trio in the NRL. I'm not saying Ali Leotawa, Dimitri Vaimonga, and Leka Halasima are the three best youngsters in the NRL. I'm not saying another NRL team, I'm not saying the Warriors have the three best youngsters after 3 games. But I'm happy with those three. You give me any other 3 youngsters. So, of course, another club, they might have 1 youngster who's awesome. They might have 2. They might have 3. But I'm still going to be happy with Leotawa, Vaimonga, and Halasima. The way they have played to start this season. That is a factor for the Warriors because Leotawa was awesome. Vaimonga played a few extra minutes, and Halasima's he might be the best youngest player in the NRL. Now, of course, what about Lockie Galvin? What about this Aussie? What about that? I don't care. Halasima's awesome. The Warriors are also first for dummy half runs. And this is one of the craziest stats that I've found. Wade Egan is first for dummy half runs.
Stacks up, yeah.
That's crazy. Well, that's not crazy. That just makes sense. As you said, it stacks up. He's the dummy half. Warriors are first for dummy half runs. But Wade Egan has twice as many dummy half runs as the next best dude, number 2. And Wade Egan has averaged 10 meters per dummy half run in all 3 games. So not only is Wade Egan doing the most dummy half running, but he's getting 10 meters every time. Average. That's Wade Egan's not fast. He's not explosive. He just cruises out a dummy half, doing his slow-mo thing. And he's doing it a lot, and he's making a lot of meters. So when you factor that into completions, dominating territory, winning the physicality battle, Wade Egan's a key factor in that, as I said, with Shans Nickel Clockstow as the barometers, because Egan is busy around the ruck. He's engaging defenders around the ruck, which tires those defenders out and opens up space out on the edges. So that's a really good wrinkle for Wade Egan. The Warriors are... What have I got here? So they're 2-1 in the NRL. They're 3-0 in New South Wales Cup. That means the Warriors are 5-1 across their top 2 grades. That seems notable. But
5-0 in Australasia.
That's true. 0-1 in America because America sucks.
Yeah, America's terrible. We've established this several times in several different contexts in the last few weeks. So America's terrible.
And in this one podcast. But so the Warriors are 5-1 in the top 2 grades, and they are 1-9 in the under 21s and under 19s. That's a very interesting kind of just glimpse at where the Warriors are at. Of course, I maintain my focus at the New South Wales Cup level. I'm not worried about under 21s or anything else, because the youngsters keep helping the New South Wales Cup team win. So those are good youngsters. And this is a New South Wales Cup team that is winning for the 3rd season in a row with youngsters, with NRL players, with just a good, solid reserve grade team. And it's very impressive how the Warriors are doing that across their top 2 grades. And now they take on the Tigers, which will be a fascinating matchup. We'll talk about it more in the bonus podcast on Thursday. Of course, we have to wait and see how the teams are named. But it will be very interesting game, because I'm curious to see how the patient completion territory battle looks for the Warriors against the Tigers. Tigers finished strong in their win. Who did they play? The Dolphins, I think, last weekend. So they finished strong as well in their last outing, which sets up a good game against the Warriors on Sunday evening. One last stat for you. The Warriors are 16th for penalties conceded. So they are one of the fewest penalized teams in the NRL. So when you go, okay, they got the best completion rate in the NRL, let's get the average. And there's still, the Dragons and the Warriors are the only teams conceding fewer than 4 penalties per game this season. So let's just do those two stats. They have the best completion rate in the NRL, and they are one of the most disciplined teams at giving away penalties. That's a recipe I think Warriors fans can be proud of. But just those two facts alone. And it also goes against every stereotype that anyone has about the Warriors. So that's where we're at. Stay tuned for the bonus podcast coming on Thursday. Big up yourself. We appreciate your ears and eyes and being here with us. Big up. Church.